Welcome to this month's episode of Recovery Rockstar. My name is Melinda. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I have to say I am extremely grateful and feel so blessed to be in Franklin County and being able to highlight people that are in recovery, highlight the solution. And when I look at the stuff that we're doing in our county, it's just amazing to see people pull together. And amidst various conferences and meetings that I've been to this week on how to help people get into recovery, different strategies, at the end of the day, I'm fully convinced that what it boils down to is relationship. What it boils down to is a person feeling loved. We know that the definition with happiness are 3 Ps, which are purpose, passion, and pleasure. And for somebody who's in recovery, when they can achieve access to having purpose, passion, and pleasure, not only are they able to stay away from alcohol, drugs, other substances, or even just symptoms, but they're able to live full lives and help other people. So I feel more blessed today, I think, than I ever have with the beautiful things that I continue to see happening in the recovery community, in our community as a whole, in the state of Vermont, putting so much effort into helping people get out of the grips of addiction and get into a beautiful lifestyle of recovery. So the other thing that I'd like to highlight are some of the relationships that can be formed and that help people in their recovery journey. They can be anything from a 12-step sponsor to a recovery coach, to a relationship with a counselor, to the faith-based community. There are so many different options out there, and I just encourage anybody who needs help to, whether it's look online, check out the Vermont Recovery Network, check out your local recovery center, contact your local church, contact your providers, but don't stop and feel that someone won't understand or you're not worth it, because you really are. And this show, after watching the news and seeing the fatalities, the violence, the crime, this show highlights the recovery and all the beautiful things that are happening, so people don't have to feel discouraged that we're going a negative direction, because at the end of the day, there's hope for everyone. So this episode, I'm going to be highlighting somebody that is actually very special to me, extremely special to me, and I'm really excited for him to share his journey with everyone out there. He has gone through some very difficult things in his life. He's got some great life experience of what not to do and what to do. And he's willing to come on this show today to share those experiences with me. So I'd like you to help me welcome Jody White to the Recovery Rockstars show. So welcome, Jody.
Thank you, Melinda. I'm very, very grateful to be able to have the opportunity to be here today.
I appreciate you accepting it. So what I'd like to ask you, Jody, we're going to start at the beginning. Give me a little snapshot of what it looked like in your younger years, of what your life was like.
My younger years consisted of a normal childhood upbringing, always being outside, always looking for activities to do, had plenty of energy. Loved to play sports. Sports were a big thing, soccer being the biggest highlight of the childhood that I can remember and not forget, is always right here in the forefront.
For you, like, of course I know you too, so I'm going to try to omit to how well I know you so other people can get to know you just as well. But sure. Soccer meant a lot to you, as something you had a lot of passion for. So as time went on, let's say, what age did you start with experimenting or using any substance? Approximately what age?
Approximately, I would say somewhere around between 12 and 13 was the beginning stages. From grade school up through junior high, I played soccer. I lived it, I breathed it. I often say that was my first love, my first addiction. There was nothing that could separate me from that. And then as time went on, in the midst of my between 8th grade and freshman year, I began to be a daily drinker.
So around that high school years, did you find that drinking, and it was partying for the most part, is that what drew you to using substances for the most part?
Yeah, I mean, it was a way to fit in. Mm-hmm. It was a way to kind of stand out from everybody else. It was kind of, it made me feel good, you know. So being able to drink, I didn't have to worry about anything else. And you were right in the beginning. It's exactly what it was. It was just to have fun, to party, and you know, and then go on and hopefully things will be okay. Unfortunately, in my circumstance, that wasn't the case. But
so you're using recreationally, partying, having fun, still playing sports, and then eventually a time came where you said it went to daily use. How did that affect your first love of playing soccer?
It was tough. It was actually really tough, and it was crazy how things changed so quickly. In the midst of throughout the summer of 8th grade and going into freshman, I didn't really look at it as that I had a drinking problem or that it was taking away, because I was still playing soccer throughout that summer. What I noticed is that when I went to school to BFA that freshman year, I didn't want to play soccer. I tried out for football. I didn't like it. And then I just kind of went on my way through the rest of the year. And then my junior or JV year, as a sophomore, then I went back to soccer. And then still drinking. And at that time, I was a daily drinker. Bringing it to school, wake up in the morning, big slam of Mountain Dew, pour half of it out, top it off with vodka, maybe a couple of shots to take the edge off, and then proceed on to school, put that in my locker. And it was really, it was okay. I didn't see any difference in it. The differences that came up is when I went to stop. Then people started to recognize that that might be a problem. Fast forwarding really quickly through that, the following 2 years, or that same year as a sophomore, after soccer got done, I ended up getting caught with alcohol in my locker. That was my first experience with treatment. I went to Beach Hill Hospital in Keene, New Hampshire for 30 days. And I was young. I mean, I had it was an experience. I can say today that there was a seed. You know, there was a seed that was planted, and so when I just came back and continued it on, picked back up right where I left off. You know, I pleased whoever I had to please, and but they wouldn't let me come back to school. Went to alternative for a little while. They would have still allowed me to play sports, so to speak, and looked more like try out for preseason and see what happens. Once that preseason was over and then I was cut and realized that I couldn't play soccer anymore, then I chose that it was time to leave high school and get transferred to what I know today as the School of Hard Knocks.
So something that I hear in your message is, and it's common for a lot of people that struggle with addiction, is that you have something that you love and you're passionate about, and that's something that every person needs in their life, whether it be a sport, whether it be some other event or something they're committed to, and how freely we give that away. And I hear a lot of people in recovery say, well, I lost my children, I lost my job, and what it boils down to is we chose the drug or the drink over that. Yeah. I don't think that we mean to do that. I know we don't mean to do that. That's never the intention. And yet the things that we give up and lose and almost end up apathetic over, it's sad, but it seems to be the recurrence. So for you, let's move forward a little bit now where, you recognize that you have this daily addiction and it's starting to hit a bottom. What got you into the bottom before you sought help next?
Oh, wow. There was a lot of key things that I guess I would have to touch base on, because once I finally came to that bottom and end and looked back, then I could honestly say that I had tried everything there was to try. And then I surrender. But once I got cut from that soccer team and left high school and transferred to the School of Hard Knocks, that School of Hard Knocks was a 17-year-old kid trying to make it on the street. You know what I mean? And there wasn't really any need for it, but I felt that that's what I needed to do. I was a bartender. I was working in a bar at 17. I was a bouncer at 18, and then jumped right into the bar life at that age. And life was good. You know what I mean? I had no worries. I could stay up all night. I could sleep through the day if I needed to. I didn't have to worry about bills. Money was good. Yeah, there was no consequences. Everybody had my back. Everybody loved Jody, and I felt like I had arrived. I was right where I was supposed to be.
So what ended up happening as we fast forward ahead to get you to a bottom when you recognized that this became a problem and it was no longer a good life?
It took some time. For me, there was no consequences for a very long time. For me personally, growing up here in Franklin County and knowing a lot of people, my parents having a family business and that being known that well known in the community, some things got overlooked a lot. So as I got older and would get pulled over, there would be a follow home or a ride home or call somebody to come pick you up. I will back up a little bit, and at 15, before I went to that treatment center, that was my first DWI. I didn't even have a driver's license. And it was just the insanity that the person that I was driving for was way too drunk and that I could drive and that I would be okay. And it was really crazy. So going back to your question, the isms started coming in through the bar scene, the drugs, the alcohol, lots of cocaine proceeding, but things were okay.
So when did it get bad?
It got really bad. One night when I decided, looking at the person that I was using with, and realizing that I didn't want to do this anymore. But it was temporary, and I'd stopped for a little while, and then continued to. The drinking was bad, and I went to work for my father. I could drink during the day selling cars. But once the towing piece came into it, I couldn't drink and drive.
Right.
So then at that time in 1999, I had put my hand through a table saw. And obviously that was my one of my introductions to opiates, which I'm grateful for today, because if it wasn't for opiates, either be dead or still drinking a lonely, agonizing death all by myself. So worked for Dad, started running the tow truck, and then the opiates kicked in, and then the next thing I know, I'm off and running. My wake up call was my wake up call was I was out on a call at 2:00 in the morning, and I was headed just past the Georgia exit. There was a car rolled over in the median, and before I left, I used three Percocet 30s, and by the time I got halfway to the scene, I had started to nod off. The truck that I was driving was a 5500 International crew cab, doing almost 80 miles an hour to get to the scene on time. And as I nodded, the rumble strip had woke me up enough to realize that I needed to pay attention. 2 weeks after that, I was at another scene up in Sheldon, and had my sandals on and going right along. Car was rolled over in a ditch. And as soon as I got out of my truck and got to where the car was, little beknown to me, I'd lost my sandal. And I continued to pull the car out, recover it, put it on the bed, and jump back in the truck and be off to go. And as I turned around to say goodbye to the trooper and to tell him have a nice day, he was just kind of looking at me a little strangely and said, Jody, where are you going? And I said, off for the day, I'll see you next time. And he said, you're going to grab your sandal? And I just kind of put my head down and went over and put my sandal back on and see you later.
So it's not uncommon to, when we hear people talk about, as they start finding a bottom and recognizing that there's a problem for you, you're not even aware of what's going on.
Right.
You're putting your own life in danger by driving under the influence, by hitting the rumble strips. So you finally got to a point where you recognized that you needed help. So if we can tell me exactly what you did so we can start turning the curve on what got you here now.
Turning the curve was, it was after that I was at a point where I didn't want to live anymore. So I had woke up one particular morning and open up the phone book, and I was going to any treatment seminar that would help me. Yeah. And I didn't care if I was going to Florida, South Carolina, wherever it was I was going. I was fortunate enough to get into Act One in Burlington. I was there for 5 days, and they told me, you're free to go. And I said, and I knew. I said, no.
You knew you needed more.
I need more.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm not leaving here until I can go directly from here to treatment.
And so where did you end up from there?
From there, I went to Maple Leaf Farm.
Yeah.
And I was there for 30 days. Again, about probably halfway through, the eyes were a little bit clearer, and I started to hear things, and that might have been a solution there that got my attention, but I couldn't pinpoint it. I couldn't figure it out. The way that I looked at things for the people that were coming to visit. If you drank and did drugs like I did, like, how can you have this today? How can you be happy? How can you have money in your account? How can you have a new vehicle? How can you have friends? How can you be happy, joyous, and free? Like, it didn't click in.
I think that's something that so many people who have addiction struggle with, is that we all think we're unique. Mm-hmm. And we're terminally unique. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing special about one story to the next, or I shouldn't say special, but it's really, a lot of times it's like the same song with maybe a little bit different words. You learn in treatment that you weren't alone, right? So did that feel like you had some hope, because you were able to see that, as much as you thought that you were so different from the rest of the world, that really you weren't, and that there was a solution? What was that solution that you started following?
That solution for me was one of the things that I did to talk to my counselor that was at Maple Leaf. I told him that I was a very good salesman and that I could sell a blind man glasses. And I told him to make sure that he calls me out, to hold me accountable. So this particular morning, I woke up and I was feeling really good. And I went and saw my counselor and said, "How you doing today?" I said, "I think I've had enough. I'm ready to go home." And he called me out. And so I went to a meeting that night. And it was a 12-step meeting. And a bunch of people came in, and it's that same people that were, I was thinking, there's this bus and they're all loading up and they're coming to pick on us. And there was something that said about a certain step, and I took the suggestion, and that next morning I was told to throw my wallet underneath my bed, and that I'd have to get it in the morning. And so when I went to get my wallet, I was already on my knees, and that I needed to pray.
And that's the way to start your day.
That was the way to start my day.
So as you move through treatment and you end up getting back into the non-residential treatment world where there's more freedom, what did you do? Were you able to maintain your recovery? What was your life like?
My life was amazing. It really was. The first and foremost thing that I had to remember when I left treatment, that there was no more overhead. That's where my feet hit the pavement, and I had a choice to make, to decide if I was, had enough sobriety time under my belt, that I was fixed and that I could go back and do the same exact things that I was doing, or if I was going to make change. And it was told to me that I had to change people, places, and things, and that I had to, follow the suggestions from getting a 12-step sponsor, which I did at that time. I did a lot of service work. My sponsor kept me very busy. If I had downtime, then he would find something for me to do. If my car was empty, he'd make sure that I was making phone calls to make sure that I was going to pick people up. And at that time, a lot of my service work, because I was living here in St. Albans, I would drive back to Maple Leaf Farm sometimes 3 to 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm. So that's something that, of course, you and I know is one of the key pieces of not only like being in recovery, but staying in recovery, is everything that we learn, giving it away. As we're trying to help other people, we reiterate what worked for us, and it also keeps it fresh, because nobody wants to be a hypocrite and say, well, you ought to do X, Y, and Z and not be doing it in their own life. So it sounds like you were definitely doing all of that stuff. So as time went on, did you end up finding a point where you did relapse, and why?
As time went on, I did. I did a lot of things that, like I said, the service work. I even got into certain levels of service work. And then there came a point where I had asked myself, I'm doing this day in and day out, all hours of the day. How do I know it's working? And so I took that gamble. And that gamble provided me with, well, maybe I'm not just going to call my sponsor today. I went to a meeting yesterday, so I'm not going to go to a meeting today. Mm-hmm. I've got everything I need, right? I'm financially, I'm okay, emotionally, spiritually, physically, like life is good. I got a good job, I got a good car, you know. And then as I sigh comes in, you know, I was missing a key component, which was companionship. And for me, that turned into the drug, turned into
an addiction itself. Yeah. So it sounds like what you ended up doing, and it's a classic reason we hear a lot of people say why they may have ended up picking up again, is stop doing all the things that were working. Mm-hmm. Stop being accountable, stop staying in contact with people in recovery, stop, you know, essentially working a lifestyle of recovery. So you end up relapsing, you end up hitting more bottoms. What does that look like? And let's get you to what it's like now as a result of.
Very, very quickly, in a nutshell, I mean, I ended up in a relationship that I thought that was meant to be, that wasn't, that ended up getting me out of Vermont. I thought that a geographical change might work. I thought that having a child might work. A lot of things that I thought were okay that weren't. You know, I had that tunnel vision, not seeing any red flags of what's going on. Everybody else around me saying, "Wow, what's going to happen here?" And they had to, you know, step back. I ended up having to do almost 2 years behind the wall, being incarcerated for actions that I had taken through that period of time, and it was crazy how fast I picked back up.
That's something that we hear a lot too, and we know that medically even the disease continues to progress even when we're not using. So when we pick back up, it gets worse. So for you, that was your experience, is that once you pick back up, you know, the not yets, and we hear that so much, where somebody says, well, it's caused me some issues, but I haven't been arrested yet, I haven't gone to jail yet, I haven't overdosed yet, and all those not yets tend to end up happening when we don't stay in recovery and stay accountable. So, you know, thank God that your outcome wasn't the overdose and whatnot. So you ended up finally coming to a point where you surrendered emotionally, physically, mentally, right, when you were incarcerated. So what happened when you were free from incarceration?
When I was free from incarceration, I still had some decisions to make. My alcoholic, drug addict thinking thinks that maybe things will be different this time, and it wasn't. I learned that very quickly, and I left everything. It was material, that it can be replaced. For me, I was in New York. I walked from Malone all the way to Chateauguay, probably close to 20 miles. A pair of sandals, T-shirt.
They weren't the same sandals that you had the day in the tow truck?
No.
Okay.
Pair of sandals, a T-shirt, shorts, and my wallet. And I think I had enough change to make a couple phone calls. And that was the walk that started, rejuvenated my journey. Yeah. That I knew that I didn't have to look back, that I could move forward. My parents ended up picking me up, and we went out and had pizza. And one of the great things about it was that I have a son. His name is Ashton, and it was his birthday. It was September 17th, 2015, and we went out for pizza and went back to the house, and I stayed there. And then the next morning, I jumped. It was almost like I never left. Mm-hmm.
Okay, take your time.
You know, God does for me today what I could never do for myself. When I was in recovery prior to, I did a lot of good things, and a lot of seeds were planted, and life was amazing. The day that I came back to Vermont, to St. Albans, to the Franklin turning point that's on Lake Street. So many amazing things happened.
So it sounds like, I mean, you went right towards the solution.
Yeah, that was it.
Back to
It was
Vermont,
drawn. Like God has a plan the whole time, and all I got to do is get out of the way.
Don't we all?
I just got to get out of the way, and it was so like almost billboard painted such a pretty picture of letting me realize that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. In that situation, not only did I come together with my now wife, it was also...
Who's your wife?
It was also like going into a meeting and that meeting starting, and I hadn't been back in St. Albans for less than 12 hours, and the meeting starts and this poor woman comes in who was deaf, and nobody like really did anything. And so I waited, and then I decided to give her a hand and have her sit down, and wrote a piece of paper to say that she was in the right place, and then she'll be okay. And then she started to cry even more, and I'm like, okay, now it's somebody else's turn. But my instincts just jumped right in, like those seeds are planted, what I'm supposed to do, and grabbed her by the hand and walked her into another room. And that's when you had joined me, and she had somebody else take over the meeting, and that's really where it started off from. And then continuing to go to the turning point day in and day out, and volunteer and try to figure out like what do I got to do? Where is the solution? And really just live and breathe in it, and take action, and not look back at where I was. I can remember now today I can say behind the wall, and prior to it was more of prison and poor me, and I got to go back there, and it's not like that today. So,
at the end of the day, of course I know your story, but the provoking questions that I ask is because you're highlighting that it's having accountability, it's getting support, it's committing to the action, and that's something that we know is huge, that faith without works is dead. Having an amazing plan, that's great, but if you're not actually suiting up and showing up and doing that action, there won't be the outcome that we know God has in store for us. So, and I got to give a little shout out to Pastor Mike Oldham, who had this saying that, God he doesn't call people who are qualified, but he qualifies the people that he's called. So there's a lot of people that have been called to do the work of helping people struggling, and you've been called to do that. So as we wrap this up, if you can just give me 1 to 2 quick points on what you believe this is the solution and life purpose for you.
Purpose and life solution for me is what I just shared a couple of minutes ago of handing my will and my life over to a power greater than myself. For me is God, and surrendering completely. God's the only one I can see around corners. I can't. Any work that he needs to have done in me, I need to let him do. I need to stay out of the way. And, it's just been an amazing experience between 12-step stuff, community stuff, just reaching out in the community and volunteering and giving back on a faith base, going to Church of the Rock on a regular basis and becoming more of another set of a family there, which was all an action process. It wasn't just like showing up and, everything's going to folder down to Jody. Those putting actions into place and really listening and focusing on what God's plan is for me. And that's really, that's been my solution. That's been my experience. And I know other people that have had the same experiences that I do. That's not everybody's path. And I look at it today as who am I to judge how somebody recovers. So
I love that you said that piece. And that's really what, my whole hope is with this show. We have so many different guests on this show. We had Harley on the show not too long ago, and he was talking about going to the Iron Sharpens Iron conference. I know you were there too. There's so many different pathways to recovery. And I want to thank you for coming on the show. I wish we had more time.
Absolutely.
I also just want to say that, the message that we hear consistently, no matter what somebody's journey in recovery is that they need that accountability, that purpose, that commitment to their recovery. And I'm just such a firm believer that anybody, no matter what their past is, no matter what the criminal history, the health is, the family aspect, the trauma, no matter what a person's past is, they can recover. And I just hope that anybody out there who does need help takes advantage of the resources that we have. In Franklin County alone, we have so many resources. Jody's highlighted a number of them. There's the Recovery Center, Turning Point of Franklin County on Lake Street. We've got the Howard Center. We've got the Bart Clinic. We've got Northwestern Medical Center Comprehensive Pain Clinic. We've got the Church of the Rock. We've got St. Paul's. There's so many faith-based structures out there and so many recovery community resources that I hope people take advantage. So I'm so appreciative to Jody for coming on the show. Thankful to you for watching, and we'll see you next month on Recovery Rockstars.